Let's talk about algae though.
Yes. So algae buildup is normal.
Yeah.
I actually, first of all, I think it looks good. I like the green.
I like it too.
And second of all, I actually use it as a sign.
As an indicator that you're moistening your moss pole, right?
Yes, that I'm doing a good job.
Yes!
Let me show you this example. Hang on. There you go. So algae is really a sign that, first of all, you're keeping it moist. So for algae to thrive, they want moisture, they want sunlight, and they want food. So pretty much exactly what our plants want as well. So if there is algae buildup, it basically is a sign that your plants are getting great conditions and you're doing a good job. So this plant, not a moss pole, but so this plant, look, I got this.
Ooh, now you're just flexing, man. Ooh, look at you.
Okay. So this plant is currently still in moss, and I kept the sticker on the pot, and look when I take the sticker off. So where the sticker was, it's still brown.
No algae.
Where the sticker wasn't, there's algae, right? And obviously it's evenly moist and it's evenly, like it gets the same fertilizer. The only thing it didn't get was light. So really the light from, and this is growing in my cabinet. By the way, I think the new leaf is going to be full white.
Oh no. Serves you right for showing off.
I'll just show this off for now before it dies. Thank you. But yeah, basically, algae buildup really just shows that you are also giving your plants sufficient light. If there wasn't sufficient light, there would be no algae buildup. So I take it as a good sign, but of course, the algae is not harmful for the plant, right? But you don't want it to go too crazy. You don't want it to go slimy. I think it would be really hard to get your algae to the slimy stage, given how large the surface area of that moss pole is. That moss pole is just going to dry out, or at least the surface is going to dry out pretty quickly anyway.
But I think also this brings into play how aeration is important, ventilation in your home or where you've got your plants. So you're not just leaving your plants there. You need to have airflow.
Yes, I think people really underestimating that airflow. And that airflow, definitely for mold. I mean, for algae, you're still going to have algae build up if you keep it moist, fertilized, and you have light. But definitely airflow can help with mold, but just fungal issues in general. Not necessarily moss pole related, just for any plant. And you don't want water to sit on your plant leaves because, you just get fungal issues potentially. So airflow is supposed to mimic wind in nature, and it's a really important part of plant care that people, I think, often underestimate.
Very much so. Very much so.
I hear a lot, like people often ask me if the algae isn't going to compete with the plants for water, nutrients, and sunlight, and hence the plant's going to suffer. I mean, I don't think my plants look like they suffer. I mean, if I get these results while the plants are competing with algae, then I'm more than happy for them to keep competing.
But then I think, I get that question.
I think I couldn't handle it without.
Yeah, true. But I get that question a lot as well. And what I think, obviously, I mean, first of all, in nature, there is algae, okay? So these plants, like you said, they've evolved. They know what to do. They live symbiotically. They live together and everybody's happy.
Isolation in the forest.
Exactly. But also, when you actually open up a moss pole, like when you're chopping or whatever, you're not really finding the algae deep in there. So it's really more just on the surface of the moss pole and not inside. So I think it's neither here nor there. Algae is really a neither here nor there issue.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, maybe that question is coming up, but people ask me if they should switch the moss around when there's too much algae. I don't know how you could ever switch the moss around in a moss with a plant that's already attached. But sometimes, yes, I think it's getting a little bit too green and too algae-ish, specifically towards the bottom of the pole, because the bottom of the pole stays moist for longer.
Yeah.
What I've actually done is I just take the sprayer and I put it on like the high pressure setting, and I just kind of tilt the pole and I just spray it, and I can see the water running off as green, right? So I just kind of spray the algae off a little bit just to keep it in check.
Yeah.
You could let it dry out a little bit, like as soon as it's dry, it's kind of going to slowly start killing the algae, but you obviously don't want to kill your plant in the process.
Nothing wrong with algae. I'm like you. If I see algae, I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm happy. It tells me I'm doing a good job keeping that moss pole moist.
That's right. Okay. What will happen when you let your moss pole dry out? will the roots die or will they be resurrected when you moisten the moss pole again?
They'll die. Again, I love to explain to people that the moss pole is just a vertical extension of your potting medium.
Yeah.
If you grow a plant and that potting medium of your plant can fully dry out, then you water it and your plant's going to be happy, then you can apply the same principle to your moss pole.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand why you would want to let any of your stuff dry out. I think it's one of these myths, right? Because most people struggle with overwatering. So to overcome that, it's easier to tell people just let the plant dry out, that they don't mind drying out between waterings. And yes, they mind drying out between waterings less than they would mind being drowning in water, for sure. So I think it's just one of these things that you're told when you first start with plants, because it's the number one thing that's going to probably prevent you from killing your plant. But once you start understanding plants a little bit better, and hopefully you do by the time you get into your moss poles, once you get your wish list plants, hopefully you've gotten a bit of experience already. So I think by now we don't need to listen to those
myths.
Pure beginners. We can actually go a step, we can advance a little bit and really understand what the roots want. I would let them dry out completely, because what happens is if the moss pole dries and then the roots dry and then you rewater it, the roots can't actually absorb it and they're actually going to rot. So that's really, really common way of getting root rot, is letting it dry out completely. And then watering it, and then it's like, oh my God, I can't handle all this water, and it's just gonna die.
Yeah.
The fact that it makes watering the moss pole so much more work and so much messier. You're gonna have an easier time watering it, let's say 3 times a week, but just watering it a little bit, consistently keep it moist, than watering it once a week fully and making a mess. You're actually gonna save time if you water before they're fully dry.
That's right. And I think we're talking probably about people who don't have 40 moss poles in their home.
Hopefully, yeah.
And if you've got 3, 4, 5, it's really relatively easy to stay on top of. Like you say, if you're doing it consistently, then you shouldn't get to that point. But, I know I have had my moss poles be crunchy a few times, and no, those roots do not regenerate. They're gone. Your plant will then have to start getting new roots, and you're really setting your plant back. And as Jan said, you're risking root rot and all the rest of that. Your plant probably won't die, unless you really let it be dry for such a long time. But you're not going to get the results that you were looking for with that kind of care.
We also got to set kind of the expectation, and I think with this whole Q&A, we're not trying to get people to stop killing their plants. I think we're really trying to optimize growth, right? I mean, there's 2 things. There's just pure survival, and then there's thriving. If you just your plants to survive, I reckon most of the things that we do over here are overkill. But I want to say most people probably want to bring out the best in their plants. And if you want to bring out the best in your plants, you got to optimize the potential that they've got, and then you got to realize that potential. So that's why we're talking about all of these things and kind of going a little bit more, deeper, intense, because we actually want to get the best out of them.
I love the word optimize. That's it. That's exactly it. Next question was, how can I grow plants on shorter poles and not have to extend them?
Choose wisely.
So what do you mean by choose wisely? What plants are good for shorter poles?
Trying to look for a plant that's either climbing with very small internodal spacing. So internodal spacing is the space between each node, aka how much stem is there, how much empty space is there, right? So for example, verrucosum grows with very large internodal spacing, at least the variety that we've got commonly over here in Australia. Grows probably with that much, meaning that, on a 90 centimeter pole,
you'll have 3.
I have 4 or 5 leaves or so, right? But then there's other plants like soliroi, for example, that grows with really short internodal spacing. So it can probably, by the time it reaches the top of the pole, it might take 2 years to reach the top of the pole and might hold 30 odd leaves or something like that, right? So if you don't want to extend your plants, get a plant that grows with very small internodal spacing. Now, if your plant has the potential to grow with very small internodal spacing, you still got to realize it. If you're not going to give that plant sufficient light, the plant is going to try and look for light, which then increases the internodal spacing again, right? So First of all, obviously find out what potential the plant has, but then you also got to meet the care.
But also, I think instead of extending your moss pole, you could chop it, and then give the bottom part to somebody else, and then you start again with the top part like you always do.
What I also do is I grow a plant up a moss pole, and then once it reaches the top of the moss pole, I cut between every node.
Yep.
I keep it on that moss pole. I let every node reshoot, and then once I basically have 20 little plants growing on that, or like not 20, let's say 10 little plants growing on that moss pole, I then take the pole apart, take the 10 cuttings, pop them back into a pot, put a new moss pole on it, and now I've got 10 plants growing on the same pole.
Growing up on one moss pole.
You don't need to continuously increase because we all have limited space eventually, right? But still, you're eventually going to face that issue. If your plant grows with large internodal spacing, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Okay, choose your plants wisely. When are you going to Kill This Plant for the title of Moss Queen? There's a video that Kill This Plant has made about how he makes the best moss poles now. Right, he's made this video and he's made this moss pole and he's got power tools and PVC pipes and all sorts of things. Lovely guy, he's called Lee, and he had me take a look at his video and give my opinion before he published it, and I gave my opinion and I said, well, it's great, I love how you're so genius and good luck with that. I'm sticking to the good old this. And he had me do a cameo in his video. It was a little comedy cameo. So he calls me up on the phone and he says, he's talking and explaining his device, and his phone rings and he's like, hang on, it's on. He's like, Nora, how are you? And I'm on the other end of the phone and I'm like, so you say you make the best moss poles now? And he's got this little plant on a moss pole and he's like, yeah. And I said, is that a marble queen on your moss pole? And he says, yes, it is. I'm like, well. Okay, I'm just used to my marble queen looking like this on my moss pole.
I'm not used to seeing plants that tiny.
I know, I'm not. I don't know what that is. And you say you make the best moss poles? So it was really, really funny. It was a fun thing to do. And, it's just exactly what we're talking about. People have different skills. There's many ways to skin a cat. You can make moss poles in many different ways, and more power to you if you can do it differently.
First of all, this is not a competition.
Yes, also.
I'm a firm believer that proof is in the pudding.
I think it truly is what you said. It's not a competition, and it can never be a competition, because even just between me and you, I'm in Melbourne, you're in Sydney. The climate is completely different. I can never replicate what you have behind you because it's way too cold here.
And then we've got Paz in Queensland, and she's doing no work on that. It's I already have to do so much work to compensate for bloody Sydney, and then you would need to do even more to compensate for Melbourne.
Exactly.
And then we get people, they're like, bloody Australians. And it's you do realize Australia is ginormous.
Yes.
We rank from snowy mountains to desert. It's not all Australia.
Exactly. So everything is different and everything. And I think the take home message from all this is we're all just trying our best. The principles stand true. If you follow the principles, apply them in your own setting and do what is available for you, what you can manage, that's all that matters at the end of the day. The thing that
It's me. Pick me.
Yeah, I'm picking you.
One more thing, you gotta enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's what I was gonna say next until you said pick me.
You gotta enjoy it. I get these messages a lot where people are I'm so afraid to do this. I'm so scared it's gonna die. Do not purchase a plant if you are scared that it's going to die. You can't go to bed because you just purchased a plant and you just purchased yourself a bunch of worries. Bloody hell, it's 2022. So much stuff is going wrong in the world already. You don't need to add any more to your stress.
Exactly.
So if this is not actually giving you joy, if you don't enjoy the journey,
don't
you're just
do it.
here to hit an end goal. Trust me, you will never hit the end goal because by the time you hit your goal, the goal has moved further away.
It's a new goalpost.
Journey. If you are not enjoying the journey, are you really in it for the right reasons? Are you just trying to chase an image that you saw on Instagram?
Yes.
Or are you actually enjoying the process? Are you actually enjoying the connection with the plants that you're forming and so on? If it's a no,
then that's the wrong thing. Because I always, and I keep saying that actually being on social media with plants, being on YouTube, being on Instagram, in some ways I actually find that bad because it takes away that time I have to spend with my plant. When I'm trying to do something, I'm thinking, oh, hang on a minute, this is content. But sometimes I just like, no, I don't want this to be content. I just want to sit here and just do this with my plant and just be happy in the moment without thinking about how it looks. Do I have the right angle? You know, I just want to be. And ultimately, that's the thing I love the most, just being with my plants. We could talk all day, all day.
We could. We pretty much have, actually.
I think we pretty much have. It's been such a joy to have you. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate the fact that I am your first collab. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you've taken the time to do this. So happy. Everybody, please go and check out Sydney Plant Guy's channel. You will absolutely love it. He has some drop dead gorgeous plants you could never believe. If you haven't heard of Sydney Plant Guy, I don't know what rock you've been hiding under. You know, I'm almost a boomer now, and all this technology is just so interesting. And I came across this Riverside thing, and we have been able to do this with Sydney Plant Guy, and I'm just so stoked. So if you want to do something similar, link down below, you will find that. Hand it over to you, Jan, and you can say goodbye to everyone.
Bye. Well, it was really nice. Look, I'm very passionate about this topic. I'm very passionate about moss poles. I really love talking about them. It's nice bouncing ideas off of you and, like, you know, exchanging experiences as well and seeing that it isn't just something that just works for me. Like, if you apply the principles, it should work for everybody. So, you know, I really appreciated that. Really nice. It was really nice being here. Honestly, I could talk about moss poles all day, every day.
All day, every day.
Oh, did you see that big meow? Like,
we must do this again. We will do this again.
Episode 3 was an absolute hoot. If you haven't seen the other episodes, go and watch episode 1 and episode 2.